Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to a special Where Are They Now edition of 1 Million Cups. My name is Nicholas Stamper, and I will be hosting today's presentation. So first, I'm going to talk for a few minutes about 1 Million Cups, its mission, and the second thing will be the actual 6-minute presentation given to us by our guest today, and the third we'll do is a Q&A from our audience, and shortly after that, we'll wrap up. 1 Million Cups was created by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation. The purpose of this foundation works alongside educators, researchers, and other partners to better understand and improve the environment in which entrepreneurs start and grow businesses. 1 Million Cups is a free weekly program to educate, engage, and connect local entrepreneurs. It's an environment where you get to be able to have different conversations with different entrepreneurs and business owners. The overall mission behind 1 Million Cups is to, again, not only lower the barrier of access to education and resources for all entrepreneurs, but to be surrounded by a community and an environment that helps you build ideas and get feedback on your businesses. In the beginning, 1 Million Cups started off small in Kansas City, and then by July 2022, and even to today, it has grown to 131 communities. Moving forward, at each location, there are presentations each week. Today, we have John Alleyworth with SpecBio. He's going to have 6 minutes to present, and then 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A. If you want to know more about 1 Million Cups or how to present here, please feel free to join our amazing community online and visit our platform at www.1millioncups.com/Chico. With no further ado, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and let John take over.
Hey, good morning. All right. Let me pull up my slides here and we'll get going.
I think the last time we were at the makerspace, is that right? When the last time you presented, or was that was it a restaurant?
Can you guys see my slides?
Yeah.
Terrific. That's possible. It's been a lot of years of me doing this. It feels like they all blend together. All right, I'm going to start my 6 minutes. Hey, everybody, I want to talk to you a little bit about SpecBio. This is the new entity that I'm working on. Any of those of you that have maybe followed me or my track record in the past here locally, I founded a company in 2015 called Zytogen Biotech with a special expertise in human stem cells. We used and leveraged that stem cell expertise to create a dermatology grade brand of anti-aging skincare called Factor 5. And Factor 5 has sort of opened up a lot of opportunities and leveled us up to a place where we can now start something called SpecBio. So I'll talk a little bit about, basically Factor 5 has done well. This is some of the media and awards that we've had over the years. We've been featured in all the beauty magazines. We've been coast to coast, nationwide brand, exporting it now overseas. And we've learned a lot about how stem cell and stem cell products interact with humans by way of this brand. And we've also learned a little bit about some of the opportunities to scale and to go and advance on that. So one of the things I've always wanted to do, this is a quote from me, it's weird quoting myself, but this is a quote from me, that we always wanted to take the technology that we developed in Factor 5 into kind of a functional healing tissue restoration space. So more around therapeutics. That's always been the goal. And there's a reason for that. The space that we've always looked at is in wound healing, and most particularly in the space of chronic wound healing. I can go into this a lot, but about 2% of all Americans suffer from chronic wounds. That's 6.6 million people. It costs the government in the neighborhood of $24 billion annually to treat these people. That's the GDP of Iceland. Chronic wounds are different from normal kinds of wounds because they are in fact chronic, meaning they never really go away. You have a wound that persists over years and decades. This is a global problem, even though I've just quoted you domestic numbers. This, I don't know if anybody's squeamish, but this is a picture of a person with a chronic wound on their foot who took a Factor 5 skincare product. So not anything, just use this off-label and use it on their foot to try to treat a chronic wound. This is after 6 days of use. And if you're familiar with the wound space, the redness that you see, the redness is the after picture. And what you see is, this is what we're talking about when we talk about angiogenesis or blood supply. Bringing blood supply to the site of a wound is critical in wound healing. And our topical skincare product was able to do that for this gentleman. So it was pictures like this that get sent to us along the way that have taught us that we actually have something in the wound healing space. So we do stem cells. One of the things people always want to know is, are you using babies? Are you using tissue that I would feel unethical about? No, we're not. We get our stem cells from adipose, which is a medical word from fat tissue. So fat tissue is easily obtained. People are getting it sucked out of them all the time. We get our donations from liposuction aspirate. There's other types of factors in the marketplace coming from that are grown in labs or that are grown from other types of cells. Later, if anybody's interested, we can go into detail why those aren't really optimal. So we actually go for the stem cell growth factors themselves, or the stem cell proteins themselves. A growth factor is a naturally occurring protein that your body synthesizes to catalyze different biologic reactions in your body. It's basically like a key that starts the engine of different cellular processes in your body. Stem cells produce all the growth factors that are needed for a wound healing. So there's sort of an ideal molecule for that. We only use adipose-derived stem cells. This slide, I could take 6 minutes alone on this slide. Suffice it to say, growth factors are very exciting technology. It's new biotech. It's being studied by universities all over the world. It's starting to make their way into some early clinical trials. We love them because of exactly what they do. They hydrate, they smooth, they modulate inflammation, they provide structure in the form of collagen, they provide elasticity in the form of elastin and fibronectin, other molecules that your skin needs to heal large wounds. And to our knowledge, we're the only company using the factors themselves in the wound healing space. So we have a lab by way of Factor 5. We've already cultivated some of the infrastructure resources needed to create a new product like this in the wound healing space. Within our lab, this is research that we've conducted. If you look at the byline there on the top, these are all our own researchers that are conducting early preclinical animal phase trials using zebrafish and using keratinocyte wound closure studies in vitro. Any scientists on the line, we could talk about what that means. But essentially, what this means is while we've been selling skincare, we've been studying and validating the actual scientific value of our proteins in the wound healing space. This is a photo of a woman on the left with dramatic subdermal inflammation. This is what we mean about inflammatory modulating proteins. Essentially, inflammation is part of the healing process, but you want it to be just about right, not too much, not too little. And this is a demonstration of how our stem cell derived factors can modulate the inflammation to the right amount that you need for optimal wound healing. This is another one that was derived from our skin care space. This shows if you really get close to the screen or you have an eye for these kinds of things, you can see a minimization in wrinkles from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. You can see kind of a more healthy looking skin. I only bring this up because part of the way we're going to market ourselves is that our wound healing product is very, very good for skin. Again, we have the infrastructure in-house already needed to not only do the laboratory, but to do all the production, bottle filling, everything. We have our own manufacturing facility here in Chico. So we're sort of optimally positioned to launch a product like this. And we intend to distribute our product through mass pharmacy retail. Essentially, we believe it's going to be competitive to the topical wound healing products that you're familiar with, like a Neosporin that you can just buy from a retail shelf. Because it's over the counter, you won't need a prescription for it, and you can buy it as you can just go down to Walgreens and pick some up. And that's basically where we are now, and why I'm so excited about how we've taken Factor 5 and we've taken our stem cell science. We continue to evolve it into the future. And I'm at 6 minutes and 50 seconds.
Perfect. Great.
Amazing.
Go ahead and put some hands together for John.
Sorry.
Sure.
Right questions.
Yeah, I have one. When you were initially starting your business, like what was the idea behind it? And did you think you were going to use people's fat to like start this business and like use that as a resource?
So when I was initially starting this business, I actually envisioned this moment right now. I always knew we were going to use people's adipose-derived stem cells because I felt that they're the most ethically sourced stem cell, and I also felt like they had a tremendous amount of value. And I started this business knowing that I was going to slog through several years of only making a cosmetic grade product while I vetted out the research we needed to take it to a therapeutic level. So it's actually it's sort of corny to say, but this is the realization of a plan that started, 8 years ago.
Do you have history with this kind of like stuff in science? Is that how you knew that you were going to use this?
Yeah, I am a PhD candidate. I need to finish my dissertation to be a fully fledged PhD. But my history is in various forms of medicine. I started my career in working in the operating room and surgery. And I have learned about and been introduced to adult stem cell therapies from very, very early on in my career. So yes, when I drafted the original business plan for Zytogen, it was always I had massive exposure to stem cells by that time, and it was always sort of within the adult stem cell space, and with that in mind.
Go for it, Kent.
So we're coming up on fire season here in Northern California. And does it, a wound, could be like a laceration or something, but how does it work on like fire burns?
Yeah. So again, this is actually, it would be right in the middle of our wheelhouse. Again, what we envision is topically applied. So that could mean you could apply it topically to virtually any kind of wound you can imagine. So if it's a wound, though, the only reason I differentiate that is a lot of people do have like internal problems, deep-seated wounds, or let's say, for example, like in something orthopedics, you have a cartilage tear in your knee, or you have a meniscus tear. Our application really wouldn't be good for you right now because we're just applying it topically. There's no way it would penetrate and get to the source of the injury. Having said that, if you had a burn, that's perfect for us. That's topical. That's right where you could apply it. And again, the vision here is to make it an over-the-counter product specifically to say, if you're curious, if you want a low risk, just try a bottle for $10 or whatever, $20. And then if you're getting a better healing experience overall than you would from one of the alternative competitors, then we become your brand of choice. So you don't need a prescription. You don't need to go to the clinic. You don't need to see anybody.
Okay.
Is the pricing in line with like a Neosporin or something plus or minus?
That's a great question. Because we really haven't gotten to that stage where we're actually pricing the product out. But I can tell you from our experience in cosmetics that once you have a vertically integrated organization where you're handling sort of your whole supply chain, which we're doing, you're able to keep your costs fairly low, which makes a lot of different retail price points accessible. So if our costs are low enough, then even a $8 or $10 price point is accessible for us.
Have you found a lot of pushback still, like just in terms of stem cell? Because I know that there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to use of
100%.
stem cell.
Mostly, yes, absolutely. Just about everybody starts out with that concern, and myself included. I don't want to be a person that makes my money off of human embryos, so yeah, everybody starts out with that concern. I don't feel intuitively comfortable with the idea of using somebody else's baby for you to make money. But as soon as they learn that we're harvesting our stem cells from liposuction aspirate, that's really just going to be thrown away if we don't grab the stem cells out of it. Pretty much everybody. In fact, a great anecdote is we export now to different countries, and including some very, very conservative religious countries in the Middle East that have massive problems with embryonic stem cell research. And as soon as we explained our process, all the governments signed off on it. Nobody had any real problem with it. So it's really just a question of education, just that they understand that we're not in the business of using, human life to profit.
So like a topical thing on like a foot wound that was chronic, like for instance, like a diabetic, sometimes you get.
That's a very good application.
Okay.
Yeah. So and chronic means chronic. So what I'm saying here is, would be considered relatively revolutionary. Like there would be other doctors that would yell and shake their fist and say it's not possible, because chronic wounds have existed forever because no doctors know how to treat them, so that they'll be, we believe we've cracked the code. And these folks, people who have chronic wounds have massive comorbidities. They're sick in all kinds of other ways, and so their bodies and their stem cells and their normal healing processes just aren't functioning at optimal levels. But if we can essentially bottle that of a younger person and apply it directly to the wound site, then we have really, really good results.
You had said donations earlier in your slides, so all of that, I don't know a better way to use it, is all donated to you?
Correct.
Wow. And then you guys just like extract what you need to.
And we
So that's
we
great
send the
business
rest
plan.
to the
You don't have to-
biohazard waste disposal facility.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's if I can recommend anything to young entrepreneurs, get yourself into a business where your inventory is donated to you for free.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
John, how many, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. How many years, sorry, I'm sick. How many years are you away from the OTC?
2024.
All right, awesome. Now, who's out there doing the deals with the Walgreens and the CVS's of the world?
That's where we need prototypes, right? We need to be we've got the research phase. So, I mean, this is where we see the revenue model is in a big box retail sort of pharmacy space. That's where we see ourselves shining. I don't think this is a e-commerce brand, and I don't see it being sold through some of the other larger distribution means. This definitely looks like a retail product to me. So this is a terrible way to say this, but I'll just be brutally honest. We're comfortable right now. There's no gun to our head. So we're comfortable in our revenue position at factor 5 enough that we can take our time to create the right partnerships in the retail sector, to recruit in the right talent of people who know how to break into that sector and who have experience doing that in the past. So we're comfortable enough that we've built a good machine on our end. We just need the sales and distribution model. But again, we have time and we have capital to bring those folks online and get them going.
Nice. All right.
Another question I had is the scientists you hire, the ones you have on your team, like where do you find them? Is that like LinkedIn? Is it a friend of a friend? Because obviously you need like, since it's like the first time this is happening, like you need like the right scientist for this.
Sure. I'll be being really candid. I've made some terrible hiring mistakes in the past. I partnered with some people that were totally unethical. I've had to fire scientists who have misrepresented their intellectual property. I've had to, fire scientists who essentially have good science, but have no translational skills and ability to turn it into something people can use. So I, like a lot of employers, I've had good luck and bad luck in my recruiting and my hiring practices. Fortunately, I've had enough good luck that I have a very solid cadre of scientists who share my vision that stem cells are being underutilized, and that, let's just speak like friends. You use the word stem cell in a discussion, and most people have an intuitive belief that, yeah, there's something there. There's some future there that's going to be good for people. It's going to help us heal. I don't really know what that is, but like at some point, I'm excited for what stem cells can become. So stem cells have good brand recognition in that sense, that people know what they are and have an intuitive belief that they will be in medicine and be good for people someday. But ask anybody hey, I need to buy a stem cell product. Where can I go to get one? And the answer is nowhere, no place. It's not being done. It's not happening. And so I always search for people that have my vision of taking this huge, monumental breakthrough in science and actually bringing it to the people. I think where I differ from a lot of business owners is that I don't have any particular problem with it being an over-the-counter product and people getting it for a relatively affordable price. And other people do. They want to keep it exclusive and monetize it at the highest levels.
Yeah, don't sign up with data. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a little insider tip?
Well, it's not so, it's a very prominent data, scientific fraud case.
Oh,
The
okay.
guy has ruined a whole bunch of careers because he was on several papers and like all his work was like fraudulent. He just
Yeah.
made up the numbers. And
Unfortunately for me, I've had a brush with, people of that ethical caliber, and I've had to get rid of them.
So I have a question about stem cells in different light. So you obviously went after the cosmetics market because it's low hanging fruit from a revenue standpoint. Now you look at wound healing. What is your thoughts on stem cell injections?
I think it's fascinating. I mean, I think it's one of those. So me as a consumer, I wish it was out yesterday. Why isn't it already out? Why don't we already have it? It's dumb that it's being studied in 200 labs worldwide, and there's just insanely good results around the world, and yet it's not accessible to people. But from a researcher's perspective, I do recognize that there still exists dramatic variability in caliber and quality, frankly, that there's a lot of people purporting to be stem cell scientists that are really doing crap work. And then until we flesh out a system and a regulatory standard for production that can be met across all different nations, essentially, it's going to be difficult, or maybe until one company has the courage to create a regulated process and it's systemized and is reproduced the same way, and then get that process approved by the FDA, it's going to be difficult for the consumer to be able to get something injectable.
Yeah, there's I follow that, but I've also been hearing about certain doctors that say they do that, but I don't think that they separate the protein from.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I can speak to that really quick. So there are doctors that do that, and for the most part, I'm very supportive of them, provided they are doing good science. There are some that aren't, but there are some that are. But what I mean is that's still not like a mass consumer product, right? It's only the ultra elite with 10 grand to burn that can go in and get a stem cell injection.
Very true, very true.
Yeah, and then those and then again, I mean, I'm not accusing any particular entity of anything, but there's a very wide variability in the quality of the work. There's people purporting to do stem cell injections that just aren't stem cell injections. And since there's no FDA approval, and since people are cash paying and they're literally flying to Mexico and stuff to do it like that, there's a lot of people getting fooled right now. And because it hasn't been regulated, it hasn't been approved. And that doesn't mean the science isn't good. It just means we're still in the kind of the Wild West before the science gets approved and gets turned into a product.
before the sheriff's.
Correct.
Do you ever feel sometimes like, I'm really sorry about my voice. Do you ever feel sometimes like, holy crap, I can't believe I've done this. Like, like, holy moly. Like, I mean, like I always could see the vision, but like, I can't believe that I'm carrying this so far forward.
No, I never feel like that. In fact, I feel the opposite of that all the time. I feel like, holy crap, this is taking forever. I thought I'd be 10 years further forward than I am right now. Like, this is too slow. I mean, I saw it from day one. I knew that it could be in the topical therapeutic space since 2013. I was already imagining this. And so the fact that it'll be 2024 before we even have a viable product, and to your point, having a product doesn't necessarily mean having good distribution or having contract, or having anybody that wants to buy it. So we still have mountains left to climb, and it's 10 or 11 years later. So to me, I am proud of myself that I'm doing something, but I really wish we were going a little faster than we are.
Yeah. Well, but do you think that the time that has gone by has provided you, and age perhaps provided you a little bit more like hindsight / patience?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about it. I'm a better CEO today than I was a year ago, and a better CEO a year ago than I was 5 years ago. And you just get better as you go. I think that I was probably a pretty laughable research CEO in 2014 when I started this whole thing. And so I would argue that I'm still pretty green, frankly, but we keep moving the ball forward.
Yep. The first time I ever heard about like using liposuction and like removing and doing the centrifugal removal and then keeping just the proteins was, I want to say 2010. Do you remember, because you were in the Bay Area for a while, do you remember the Parkinson's Institute that was in like Santa Clara, Sunnyvale?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they had a myriad of different scientists there. I forget how I got involved. The guy was looking for funding, and so I was introducing him to venture capitalists, or something like that. And I remember thinking at the time, after I read AMA just and things on JAMA and stuff like that for fun, because I'm kind of a nerd that way. Anything has to do with body or brains, kind of. But I'm not the nerd you are, so let me just put that right
Sure.
forward. But I could I always thought to myself at the time, I was always like, wow, why aren't they doing more with that? They had some really good research, and they didn't have great people running the place. That's a whole nother story, but they had some really good, decent scientists and stuff. So anyway, enough about that.
No, listen, I mean, like it'll shock you. I just totally agree. It'll shock you how far the science has advanced, and yet how poorly the science is translated to where people can actually get their hands on it.
Right. Scientists are not always business people.
Correct.
Right. So it's interesting that you kind of bridge that divide. So so I don't want to take up all your time or anybody else's questions. Does anybody else got questions?
I have a comment. Speaking of the PR problem you have with stem cells, I just saw Oliver Stone talking about a new documentary he's doing. It's about an hour and a half on promoting nuclear power now to fight climate change. So, there's an uphill battle. Just,
Well, I mean, we could talk about that one all day too, because he's totally right.
Yeah.
I mean, nuclear is by far the best application for energy creation without the environmental impact. And do you know that 93% of the electric generating capability in the nuclear rods the nuclear rods are 93% still charged when they pull them and they put them to the waste pile. And actually France has cultivated a nuclear charge recycling method so that they still do have nuclear waste, but they've dramatically cut it down, like almost
doing the TerraPower.
Yeah, almost nothing. So,
France is leading the way there. France has been leading the way there for the last.
France has been leading the way. Yeah.
Yep.
And so that's another. You guys want to go into that rabbit hole? I've done some research on that one too, and but yeah, nuclear by far. And then you want to talk about reliability. It's at something like 94% of all nuclear reactors are reliable 24/7, 365, compared to 22% of all solar and 35% of all wind farms or something like that. It's like not even.
Well, if you want to power up the EVs,
yeah,
you're going to need care about the
right.
Amen to that. And so all this money, you guys, you sat through the workshops, you guys, like billions coming in clean tech, and that's part of it. They didn't use the word nuclear, but they're gonna.
There's to your point, Eva, there's a business out of Idaho that is making miniature nuclear reactors that look like ski chalets. They're these beautiful buildings. They plant evergreen trees around. They're very attractive. They're very unobtrusive. You would have no idea that it's a nuclear reactor inside of there. And it's underground and it's really well protected. They got all of it figured out, but it's not this monstrosity that takes up 50 acres worth of property anymore. It's a ski chalet. It's beautiful.
Hey, I wonder. I was thinking about hydrogen. Okay, so I'm sorry, we're completely off stem cells.
We're completely off topic now.
Thoughts on hydrogen, man? What are your thoughts on hydrogen?
I think hydrogen has a lot of promise, but it's the big question of hydrogen. So hydrogen is super plentiful, and there's like almost zero environmental impact when it's combustible, right? And
Right.
you can pull hydrogen from seawater, through electrolysis, a whole bunch of other means. So like there's a lot of different ways to get hydrogen, which makes it a really interesting technology.
Yeah.
They haven't as on an industrial scale figured out how to do combustion with hydrogen and get the energy out of it without a lot of risks of explosions and Hindenburg level disasters. My understanding is that it's come a long, long way.
Yeah.
But it's like electric EVs were, 15 years ago. There's just no infrastructure for hydrogen-based vehicles, even though the technology is moving pretty fast.
I'm
What I
working with,
understand is, I want to
Yeah.
say Toyota is now pioneering a new hydrogen engine that they say has sort of solved the I don't know, the Hindenburg gap. Like it's very
Right.
safe now,
yeah.
but they still have to overcome a big infrastructure problem before it can be widely adopted.
I've
Yeah.
seen some things about green NH3, ammonia, created by green energy,
Yeah,
or nuclear even. But
Yeah.
then you have a liquid fuel you can.
I'm working with a company out of Austin, Texas called H2EG that is doing the gasification of that, and they are partnering with Redding Rancheria and Tehama to do not only, well, they're also going to be putting these hydrogens semis that are hydrogen powered, right? They're putting in like a whole bunch of gas stations, so to speak, right, for hydrogen refuel stations, all from Washington all the way down to San Diego. But one of the gasification plants would be in Tehama, and they also want to do an eco village that the whole development is hydrogen powered.
I have a lot of interest in that subject, and so this is
So,
like I'm not pitching myself. You know how busy I am, but
yes,
I'd love to stay informed about where they're going.
yeah, well, sure. When you need to be distracted, I'll give you an update.
Sure.
I'll bow out. I'll bow out now, so everybody else can.
Our fellow that presented at the GoTech, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
was talking about how they found, what is it, the Salton Sea is a good lithium source, evidently. So that might be like the #1 lithium producer if they get that going. Mining, of course, mining anything in California, I remain skeptical about it. But
Yeah.
it seems to be, if it's aligned with what they want to do, then maybe it'll happen. You never know.
Oh, they've already been given a green light for that.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. Yeah. It's crazy how fast that stuff's moving. All right, back to stem cells. Sorry.
I've got one last question. I'm not like a scientist, but like, what are the odds or what are the concerns? Like if someone buys your product and then puts it under like a special science thing, will they be able to like figure out what you're doing or what you're using, or is that not even possible?
No, it's possible. I mean, I would say it's 100% going to happen. I mean, realistically, we do have some advancements. We've created our own intellectual property. I'm really, really proud of, by the way. That's one of the things I'm most proud of, is I feel like we have advanced the science of scaling laboratory experiments and laboratory grade stem cell production. We are probably one of the highest producing entities in the whole world of stem cell grade proteins, only because nobody else needs them at the mass scale like we do. So I've been very, very happy and pleased with our ability to create sort of an intellectual property profile around, again, how to take a what is essentially a lab experiment and scale it into a production model for a company. We've been able to do that. And I fully anticipate there will be competition. This space is just too interesting. But again, I don't want to sound like I'm some kind of lame. I get sensitive about sounding like a blowhard, but I actually am wide open to competition, provided that they are advancing the field of stem cell science and research for the common people to get their hands on. By me taking this OTC, I'm sort of shooting a shot across everybody's bow and saying, I think this belongs in the hands of the people. And so if I'm going to make money anyway, right? But I'm sort of already cutting off some of the bigger entities' opportunities to make money and to gouge people at the highest levels if I'm making it accessible to them at Walgreens, for $10. And so I still think there's going to be plenty of competition, and I welcome it to the extent that they do good science and they put it in the hands of the people.
Perfect. I think we're good to go. Just
John, thank you. Interesting as always. I love to always get your updates. Sometimes we chat, but we're not necessarily talking about business, right? Or we are, but we're talking about other things. So this is amazing. And, I'm really, really proud that we have this in our
absolutely.
reach. So,
Let's give a hand for John. All right.
all right.
Again, thank you very much, John, for the amazing presentation. My name is Nicholas. I've been your host and organizer for this week's 1 Million Cups. I'd also like to thank Eva for being our chapter lead. Of course, we also need to thank our sponsors, Chico Start, Growtech, Global Entrepreneurship Network, Build with Ferguson, Startup Grind, and of course, Stovall Coffee. Here are some of our upcoming events, and also can't emphasize this enough. Growtech Fest 2023 is coming October 11th and 12th, and this year will be held both days at the Sierra Nevada Big Room. So very exciting stuff there. I'd like to thank the audience for coming in and joining our presentation today. And lastly, I'd like to leave the audience on this quote: "Dream audaciously and have the courage to fail forward. Act with urgency." And that is from Phil Knight. So that's that. Thank you. Thanks again, everybody. Thank you, John. And you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Nick. We appreciate it. We appreciate you.